Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to GEEXX Reads. Also, Merry Christmas Eve. This is Christmas Eve. Normally I have these things recorded in advance, but I've been on vacation, so I'm kind of recording this last minute. It is actually Christmas Eve as I'm recording this, Christmas Eve morning. Anyhow, today I want to talk about the Gnome's Engine, an image of which you will see here by Teresa Edgerton. I apologize for the tiny image behind me. That is literally the only image I could find of this. This book is the sequel to Goblin Moon. There will be some spoilers for the first book because I kind of need to. In the previous book, we had learned that the Duchess of Viltgarden had essentially planned to have Elsie killed. She'd felt she'd been slighted the day Elsie was born, and in order to take revenge on the family for a slight, that was her whole elaborate plan, was to have her marry a troll, be a troll's bride, and be basically, trolls are basically cannibals, and to have her consumed as a troll bride. So very twisted around about it. The Duchess is part Fae. It's the Fae part of her that demands revenge for any slight. Lord Francis Skelbrook has declared his love for Sarah. And you know, there's this whole climactic thing where he interrupts the marriage. Another troll was trying to marry Sarah to make her a troll bride as well, just to keep her out of the way. In the previous book also, Jed and his uncle had brought a corpse they had found to Sarah's grandfather. Turns out the corpse is not really a corpse. It was a person who put themselves in suspended animation, a powerful sorcerer. When he was awakened, was not very pleased and wound up killing Jenk, Sarah's grandfather. So Sarah, Elsie, and Jed are forced to flee to the New World, which in this universe is not called North America. It's called Nova Imbria. So mentioned in my review of the previous book, this book is like an alternate version of Europe in the 18th century, of America, the world in the 18th century. So like Europe is called Uterp, Spain is Spania. There's still mentions of like the Alps. There, you know, so they reference things that I can sort of recognize. In this book, there's a mention of a place that I think is Vienna, not positive, but in that, or Italy. It could be, no, it could be either. I'm not sure which one it is. Black people are from a place called Oriana, not Africa. So, you know, you get these things that are similar but different. So they're, you know, they're hiding out in the New World from the Duchess until Lord Francis Skelbrook can find a way to fix things. Jed is sent over to Nova Imbria with letters of recommendation from the Glassmakers Guild to be apprenticed over there. While he's there working with the glassmakers, they make a discovery about a sunken island in the ocean, this world's version of Atlantis, a place that had, you know, fantastical magic and technology that sunk in the ocean millennia ago. So the story revolves around, you know, these various plots. The Duchess still wants to find them. The Jarl Skogsra is still alive, still needs a troll bride, that kind of stuff. We have all these threads bouncing around. Sarah and Elsie wind up being school teachers while they're over there. Unlike in the book Goblin Moon, goblins do make an appearance in this book. There was also an engine built by a gnome in relation to the undersea city. So, not much else. That's the general overview of what's going to happen here. Those are the basic threads going on. The book, I enjoyed the book. I really did. I enjoyed Teresa Edgerton's use of 18th century pseudoscience. You know, all the things that people thought were scientifically true in the 18th century actually work here, you know, as part of either science or magic. You know, having read some stuff about, other fantasy, science fiction, adventure stories that were written about the time period when I was younger, you know, these things about, how humors and ether and, phlegiston, all these weird kind of things that were the height of science in the 18th century being taken as serious and actually working in this novel. I really kind of enjoy that. And this book is fun. I have a couple criticisms though. The book is slow, especially the beginning part of it. It also feels kind of like filler material. The initial book, The Gnome's Engine, was probably around 300 pages. This is about 260, so it's shorter. This book is basically just tying off all the loose threads, resolving all those threads in the first book. There's really not a lot happening. I really think you could have ground this book down to maybe like 100 pages, 150 pages or more. Made the first book, instead of being a duology, you really could have done this as a single story. That is really my only complaint. I had a similar complaint about the Initiate series, which was a trilogy, but the second book in the trilogy was just filler material and almost nothing happened. It really should have been like 2 books. This is the same. It should have been one really long book. Although, granted, at the time this book was written, there were not very many books that were over 300 pages. Looking at my collection, Frank Herbert's Dune comes to mind as one of the few really thick books that came out from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Most books were around 200 to 300 pages long. Like I said, going through my collection of stuff here, it wasn't really until Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series that thick books happened to become more popular and more accepted. They existed, but they were rare and they were not generally top sellers. My other criticism is that this book, I don't really consider this book a standalone because it is so short. They do make references to why things are going on the way they are, but without knowing the original story, it really would feel incomplete. It really is a duology that you kind of need to read. I don't really consider this a good standalone book. It doesn't make it nearly as much sense as a standalone novel without first reading Goblin Moon. But other than that, it was a fun read. Goblin Moon does stand alone. You don't need to read this book without it, but this does complete the story. So if you are going to get into this, I would kind of recommend you get both of them. It's only about maybe 550, less than 600 pages, tops. And it's a quick read. It's not complicated. There's no really deep twisting plot elements, despite the fact that the Duchess is plotting to do stuff. Other than that, really, it's just a fun little read. And yeah, you kind of do need to read them both. But from a book from, when was this published? Late 2000s? Late 1990s? Brilliant. Yeah, 1991. So yeah, late 80s, early 90s novels. It's a fun little fantasy read. Like I said, 18th century swashbuckling, slight romance kind of thing. But anyway, that's my take on it. I did enjoy it. I do recommend it, even though it is kind of a slow, uncomplicated read. As always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting.